So, I mean, one thing I've been thinking quite a bit about, and I'm not alone in this, is social media and sort of its pernicious effect on creating, separate bubbles in society. People who don't even live in the same reality, don't even share the same truths, can't even look at the same picture and identify what's in the picture, right? How many people are in this crowd, for example. Um, I think it's also creating separate bubbles of motivated reasoning, right? People who are grasping for information from the world around them through social media, not necessarily to find evidence to discover truths, but to find a story that supports what they already want to hear and what they already want to feel and what they already want to believe. So that's a concept in psychology, motivated reasoning, that's been studied quite a bit. People seeking information that reinforces what they already believe. Um, and thinking about that, I've also been thinking about how social media and these channels also seem to be reinforcing sort of a negativity, a panic, a sort of downward spiral instead of positivity or empowerment. So I'm reminded that in the days running up to the election, my wife and I were doing a fair bit of door-to-door canvassing, and it was pulling teeth to try to get friends to commit to do the same. Everybody seemed to want to be on Twitter and read the news and panic, instead of going outside, knocking on some doors, talking to some voters, and trying to help get them to the polls. Um, and I just I felt like social media in a sense was keeping people from taking action, taking control over the world that they lived in to some extent. But it's not just, I don't think about social media as just Facebook and people posting news that accords with their views and that kind of thing. It's also obviously Twitter with the doom scrolling, but there's also the sort of endless upward negative social comparison that comes through channels like Instagram, right? You go on Instagram and it's like, oh, pictures of people's lives and how happy they are. Obviously, this is a curated story that they've chosen to provide to the public. This is not actually consistent with how their lives are. I'm reminded of a friend who had a wonderful Instagram feed of all these positive things they were doing with their spouse. And then, I saw on Facebook that they were getting a divorce. And I thought, what the heck? I mean, Instagram makes it look like their lives are perfect. But given that people are curating their Instagram feeds, their social media, to provide the best version of themselves, I think it then is absorbed by all of us as, oh my gosh, everybody else is so happy. Why am I so miserable, right? And I think that doesn't help us deal with the sort of systematic problem that we have here in society of just mental health in the aftermath of the election, the financial crisis that was obviously kicked off by the COVID crisis and the ongoing health crisis. So, I think all of that is kind of wrapped up in the fact that social media is a business, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. That is designed to be addictive, right? The whole point is to make it addictive. It's part of the business model. They make money off of your attention, and you essentially see the sort of perniciousness of social media through that lens. But that said, as I was thinking about that, that's not a novel set of concerns. But as I was thinking about that, I started thinking about the idea that we increasingly live in a world where people are ready to criticize others, ready to sort of chastise other people for their behavior, right? So Trump supporters and Biden supporters all think that the other side is crazy, and the progressive and centrist wing of the Democrats are fighting right now, right? And everything is kind of critical. Everyone's on Facebook and social media criticizing someone. How can those people over there believe those things that they believe, right? But to me, what's really startling about this is that there's very little self-reflection or self-awareness, right? Instead of looking inward at why do I believe the things I believe, what am I doing in my life that's consistent with the person I want to be? It's a lot of like, hey, you over there, like you're terrible and you're terrible and you're terrible. And I think that the problem with that is we're trying to unify a country and to some extent unify a globe here, in the next several years. And if we're always on the attack for other people, even people who mostly agree with us on almost everything, we're ready to attack them. We're ready to criticize them for the one thing that they don't agree with us on. I think there's not really a clear path to unification of people around, the things that do kind of bring us together. Um, and so I do worry a lot about that, right? I think of that with myself. I'm ready to criticize other people for their overuse of social media or their addiction to their phone, or um, they're not wearing masks enough, and that kind of thing. But how often do we catch ourselves doing exactly what we hate, right? So how often am I on my phone stupidly while my wife is trying to talk to me in the evening? It happens all the time. How often am I taking my dogs for a walk, and I kind of realize, like, oops, I forgot to wear my mask. I think of myself as a mask wearer. I'm over, maybe I overwear my mask, but I also forget, and sometimes I don't remember to bring it with me somewhere, and I have to drive home. We need to be willing and able to criticize ourselves, and really look inward, I think, as well. And that's partly because, we need to heal ourselves, right? We need to not just heal the nation or the world, but we need to heal ourselves, right? So be more aware of the ways in which we are struggling, and have a little self-reflection, have a little self-awareness about the ways that we can take action, that we are empowered to actually address the challenges that we are internally facing. And then I think by doing so, we can have more of a true empathy for other people who are coming at things from a different perspective. I think that's certainly what we all need right now. So those are my thoughts. My apologies if they're sort of all over the place, but hopefully there's something useful in there, and hopefully we've got a good 2021 ahead of us, after quite a nightmare of a 2020.